Okay, I'm very excited to have on the show here today Steve Vernon, who wrote a fascinating book called Money for Life: Turn Your IRA and 401k into a lifetime retirement paycheck. You may also have seen his articles on Money Watch. Steve, I want to kind of dive into this question because you talk about money for life, but what I understand is that most people are afraid they're going to run out of money during their life. Is there a solution to that problem?
Well, Doug, yes, and thanks for asking. I advocate that people look at their retirement savings as a generator of a lifetime paycheck, because the problem that I see a lot of people doing is that they look at their savings and they think it's a lot of money, so they just think of their savings as a checking account that they can just write checks and spend to meet their daily living expenses. And when people do that, they often run out of money. So instead, what I advocate is that you look at your savings as a generator of a monthly paycheck. Then all you do is spend that paycheck each month. And so it puts some discipline on us. And we've been used to this discipline all our working lives. You know, we have a paycheck coming in. We know we can't spend more than that paycheck. And so really we're setting up that same financial discipline that we've had all of our working lives.
Yeah, the problem is a lot of people are worried if they put, they save a couple of dollars and then they put it in the bank and get, maybe, 0% on it. How can they see that as a paycheck?
Well, and that's the problem, is that if that's what you're doing to generate your paycheck, you won't see much of a paycheck. So there are several different ways to generate paychecks, and each of them have their pros and cons. And that's what really either the retirees or their advisors need to learn about these different methods to pick the right methods that are good for them.
So by definition, once you take money out of the bank and you move into some other investment, you should be exposing yourself to more risk if you're expecting to get more return. Is that something you just have to get used to, or is there some other way to look at it?
Well, the way I look at it is that you need to shift your focus. While you're saving and working, you're looking at investment risk and trying to build a retirement portfolio. But you really need to shift your focus to generating income when you're in retirement. And so there's one strategy I like. I think this can work for a lot of people, is to think about what your basic living expenses are, utilities, food, rent, mortgage, and you cover those with retirement income generators that will last the rest of your life, and they won't go down if the stock market goes down. And then the rest of your savings, that's the money you can invest and draw down, and that might cover your discretionary expenses like travel and hobbies and spoiling your grandchildren.
Mm-hmm. So let's go for the first one. What sort of tool is it that you can really rely on to cover those basic expenses for your whole life?
There are a handful of tools. The first one is Social Security, and that's something that won't go down if the stock market goes down, and it is guaranteed for life. And there are methods you can use to optimize the amount of Social Security payments you will get over your life. And so the first thing I say to people is optimize your Social Security payments.
Okay, so that's one choice. What else do you got?
Well, some workers have a traditional pension plan at work or even a cash balance plan. And so they have that option to get a lifetime paycheck from their employer's pension plan. Those aren't quite as common as they are nowadays compared to prior generations, but still a number of our listeners probably have those benefits. So that's the second best way to get a lifetime paycheck, is through your employer's plan at work.
Okay, so Social Security, a fixed pension, and...
Well, before we go off of that, let me just say some pension plans offer a lump sum payment instead of that lifetime monthly check, and I call that a trap for the unwary. A lot of people think that lump sum looks pretty big and they take it, but actually it usually has less value than getting that monthly check from your employer's plan. So,
well, that's it. Why do you say that?
The regulations that the IRS allows employers to convert a monthly pension into a lump sum. They just happen to be in favor of the pension plan, and they don't produce as generous of a lump sum as dictated by current market conditions.
So just to clarify, you're not talking about a 401k plan, which a lot of people are used to. You're talking about some sort of defined benefit plan, meaning a plan which they've said we will give you, let's say, $800 a month, or you could have $200,000 today.
Exactly. So yes, I'm not talking about a 401k plan. I'm talking about defined benefit plans. And
okay, so just clarify.
To me, the advice is almost always you want to take that monthly check from that defined benefit plan, even if they offer you what looks like a large lump sum. And here's the way to look at it is that if you took that lump sum and tried to buy an annuity, which I'm about ready to talk about, but if you took that lump sum and tried to buy an annuity that would pay you a lifetime check, you couldn't buy back the check you could have got from your pension plan.
Mm-hmm. We're talking with Steve Vernon, who is the author of Money for Life, about turning your IRA and 401k into a lifetime retirement paycheck. In fact, he has been in the retirement world for decades and has been teaching people about it. He's a research scholar at the Stanford Center on Longevity, which is a concern that people have. And Steve was just explaining to us two important tools you can use to fund your retirement or to fund the basics of your retirement. That was Social Security, and if you're lucky enough to have a monthly pension, to use that. And then, Steve, I think you were about to go into annuities as the final suggestion you were going to give. Tell us about that.
So an annuity is where you buy a contract from an insurance company, and they promise to pay you a monthly check for the rest of your life. And this is one that there's so many misconceptions and there's so many different kinds of annuities out there. Some people think annuities are expensive. I'm advocating the type of annuities that is basically a personal pension. And all you're doing is buying a fixed dollar monthly check for the rest of your life. Those are competitively priced. You can buy them online. And I think it's the next best way to have a lifetime guaranteed income.
So let's go over a few of the myths there. One, or maybe they're myths or maybe they're not. People think that if you give money to the insurance company, they agree to pay you a certain amount of money for your life. But let's say 10 years later you drop dead, there's nothing left for your family.
Well, in that case, if you're worried about that, you can buy what's called a joint and survivor annuity, which will continue the check as long as you or your spouse or beneficiary are alive. You can also buy what's called a certain in life annuity, which means they'll promise to pay you for at least 10 years or 15 years or 20 years, even if you die before the 10 or 15 or 20 years. Mm-hmm. So there are ways to protect against that possibility. But here's one last point I'd like to make. Somebody says, okay, you take a joint and survivor annuity and both you and your wife get in a car crash, now what? And my answer is, well, you're dead. I mean,
there you go. That solves the problem.
Yeah, you've covered
solves your income problem, right?
Exactly. You've covered who you care about, which would be your spouse, but your spouse is dead too. So, are you really going to be worried about this? Because when you're dead,
well, you're just enriching the insurance company as opposed to, let's say, leaving it to your kids or to a charity of your choice.
Well, that's a misconception a lot of people have. They say, well, I don't want the insurance company to keep my money. Actually, what you're if you die before your life expectancy, all you're doing is paying for the benefits of those other annuity holders who live beyond their life expectancy. And so
so there's the charity you're doing. You're giving your money to those other people who happen to outlive you. Okay, I hear it.
Exactly. Really, the insurance company is just the intermediary. And of course, they have to make a profit because they're in business. But what the insurance companies do is they price these annuities, and they know that some people are going to die early and some people are going to live a long time, and they just average out the pricing.
Mm-hmm. Are these payments from the annuity companies, is it normal for them to be linked to inflation?
Well, no, most of the time they are fixed in dollar amount. But you can buy annuities that are either indexed to increase like 2 or 3% a year, or you can buy them indexed to inflation. So that's out there if you want to buy an annuity that does go up.
Mm-hmm. You know, I want to go back to something you touched on earlier, which was Social Security. I think you actually recently wrote an article that said that one of the biggest fears that people have about retirement is that Social Security will be reduced or eliminated. You think so?
Well, let's take those two words one at a time. Eliminated? I don't think so. And that's a big misconception. When you think about it, Social Security is just a way to tax current workers, and they take that money and they give it to the current set of retirees. And so I like to say, as long as we have people who are working and paying taxes, and as long as we have democracy, we're going to have some form of Social Security. So I think it's highly unlikely that that program would ever get eliminated. Now, benefits reduced? Yes. You probably have learned or heard that we have a funding challenge with Social Security. And in some way, to balance the funding problem with Social Security, either benefits have to be cut back a little bit, or we have to raise taxes, or some combination of the two. And so that's probably going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so there is something to be concerned about there. Certainly, if someone thinks that the Social Security is going to keep pace with inflation, and really what you're saying is the opposite, they might in fact cut it, this could be a real risk for retirees, no? It's a legitimate fear they have.
It's a legitimate fear, but it's just something that you should plan for and not just be totally paralyzed. And I'll give you an example, is that under the current law, if the projections hold out, in 2034, retirees' Social Security benefits would be cut by 21%. Now let's take that, 21%. That's not even a fourth of your benefit being cut. Now that's not good news. I'm not happy about it, but it's not zero. You're still getting over 3/4 of your Social Security benefit, and that would only happen if our political leaders did nothing to imbalance the funding challenges and just let this trust fund run out of money. So. Mm-hmm.
So we can count on our politicians to take care of us.
I think they're going to do something.
I got it. I think they do. I think the pressure's there. I always feel a little bit wary when I'm relying too much on politicians to look for my best interest. But I hear what you're saying. I think there's a political imperative to do something.
Well, and actually, Social Security is one of the most popular governmental programs ever. And even if you look at generationally, even millennials really like Social Security. And the way I think of it is, everybody's got a mother or grandmother or grandfather. So even the millennials by far value Social Security. And even I saw a survey of Tea Partiers who, the majority of them were approving Social Security. So it's a very popular program. And I think politicians, they recognize they need to make some decisions to make the program viable, but they're just not going to let it evaporate altogether.
All right. Well, Steve, thinking of popular things out there, I know one of the very popular things is your book, but there are other things that you do that are popular, and we're just about out of time. So tell me in the last few seconds, how can people follow you and follow other of the interesting things that you're doing?
Okay. Well, Doug, thanks for mentioning that. There is my book out there, Money for Life. You can buy it on Amazon, either in print or ebook format. And then I have a website that contains more information about the services I offer. That's restoflife.com, RESTOFLIFE. So those are ways to get in touch with me.
Okay, so we will put links to that at the show notes of today's show at goldsteinongelt.com. Steve Vernon, thanks so much for your time.
Well, Doug, thank you for having me.
You've been listening to the Goldstein on Gelt Show with money maven Doug Goldstein. Check out all of Doug's money ideas at goldsteinongelt.com. Doug specializes in helping people who live outside the United States handle their U.S. investment accounts. If you have a question that you would like answered on the air or off, contact Doug at his website or send him an email to doug@profile-financial.com.